Hello everyone, I'm Lydia Ruth. Welcome to the Manse. I hope that you are doing as best you can in your present circumstances, but like Jane Austen, you have great plans for improvement. Even if you don't get there, the plans are the fun of it all. And today I'm going to begin by telling you to click the link in the description box if you're watching this on YouTube, because you can go to my blog and watch it there and see all the extra pictures that I added, or any links or any book suggestions, and you can make comments there. So we'll begin with some poetry. Since I said most people are poetry deficient, they don't know how to hear it, read it, or understand it. So I'm going to begin with a couple of poems. I'm reading through this book by Edgar A. Guest. Now, like most things, and even myself, you can read a wonderful article or poem or story, and then you look into their lives and see the colossal mistakes they made and decide that their work is no good. But I couldn't find anything wrong with Edgar A. Guest's poems, and he was, I believe, in the 1930s he wrote these poems, and they were written to Americans basically who were recovering from war, and he knew that they would need something of a human interest in the newspaper. He worked for a paper, and at first he began to just collect these poems and little stories and anecdotes and jokes and things like that, but then he started to it was easier to write his own, and what a great job he did. So I'm going to start with a poem here. See if I can find it. You can always be busy doing something while you wait for me to find my place. Okay, I want to start out about the mind. And he has a whole section here on the power of thought. So I want to start out called Loser and Victor. And many of us, if you are homemakers, might find certain times when you feel like your life is stuck, or you're doing the same thing over and over. It doesn't seem to be making any of your desired progress in life. And not only that, but you can be discouraged and maligned and looked down on and not accepted, and so it increases your sense of isolation. So I'd like to read a couple of scriptures to you. First one is, whatever was written in former days was written for our instruction, that through endurance and through the encouragement of the scriptures we might have hope. Remember, I told you the word endurance came from the word durable. So we have to be durable, and I made an illustration about buying a chair. If it was wobbly and it wouldn't hold any weight, it wasn't durable. So we have to not be so wobbly. And then the other scripture I want to read to you is one that's always been dear to my heart. Whenever something just seemed like the end of the world to me, and even maybe had something to do with where I was going to live or what we were going to do, I have, or maybe someone said something that really discouraged me. And this little scripture here is so wonderful, and I will include it on my post so you can go and look. But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that the surpassing power belongs to God and not to us. And I love this. It's prose. It's pure prose. It's a comparison. So on one side over here and then on the other side over here. So listen to this, how clever this is. We are afflicted in every way, but not crushed. Perplexed, but not driven to despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Struck down, but not destroyed. Always carrying in the body the death of our Lord Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be manifested in our bodies. Have you ever been perplexed? That is the strangest feeling, perplexed by what someone did or said, or what's happening to you. And most of the time, this being perplexed comes from the fact that someone is not telling the truth. And they like leaving you perplexed. They like leaving you with a feeling of uncertainty. They like it that maybe you're it's keeping you up at night and making you feel distressed. And I'm sure that has happened to you before. So I will include that in, and I will tell you where to find that in the Bible. And I'm going to talk about a poem here that I just love, and I'll just introduce it from the last stanza so you can see what it's getting at. I always told my boys when I was teaching them, they had a book called Speech for Christian Schools, and it had really good instructions in it, and I said, always tell your audience what you're trying to persuade them to. Don't sneak up on them and go round and round and tell long stories and make them wonder what you're getting at. Just tell them right away, today I'm going to show you this, and I'm going to prove this, and tell you why I believe this and why I don't believe this. Just go ahead and introduce it that way so they can sit back and watch how you do that. There's a strange way of speaking these days. We can get going on something and you don't know where it's going. So this is called Loser and Victor, and this is the last stanza, so I want you to listen to this. One was beaten from the start, beaten by his doubting heart, beaten when he gave his ear to the busy tongue of fear. But another with his chance seized the moment to advance, and came happy home at night just because he dared to fight. Okay, let's see what the poem is about. Loser and Victor. He was beaten from the start, beaten by his doubting heart, and he had a ready ear for the busy tongue of fear, and he had a timid mind, unto fretfulness inclined, filled with many reasons why it was vain for him to try. Given a task, he'd shake his head. Can't do that, he often said. Times are hard and none will stay, listening to the words I say. It is futile now to try. People simply will not buy. Thus he walked the streets of trade, both discouraged and afraid. But another kind of man thought this way, perhaps I can. If I will supply the pluck, fortune may provide the luck. If I have the grit to try, there are people who may buy. Anyhow, I will not submit to defeat before I'm hit. One was beaten from the start, beaten by his doubting heart, beaten when he gave his ear to the busy tongue of fear. But another with his chance seized the moment to advance, and came happy home at night just because he dared to fight. So have you ever known anybody that said, can't do that, times are hard and none will stay, and they say that the reason that they talk like that is so they won't be disappointed, because they know if they try and they fail, it'll be a great crushing blow. But what you do, and experts have told you this, is you observe what you did wrong, and you figure out how to leave that part out, and you keep trying. And then, of course, after a long time, if it still doesn't work, you're going to have to try a different way. But in that way, you still don't say there's no use. I used to try, years ago, I made up my mind I was going to try not to get in conflict with people over anything. And I'm a natural visitor, and I like to talk. And I would find that the harder I tried, the more I noticed where people were finding ways to turn what I said into, or they would contradict. So I was trying to figure out how to avoid that. And I'd come home after a disappointing visit or something, and I would say to myself, where did I go wrong? And then I would analyze the conversation from start to finish and realize that I either talked too much, or I introduced a subject that they were not as educated in as I was, and they had their opinion, and it was likely to cause great discomfort. So I learned as I went along that, least said, best mended, that sometimes silence is just the best way, but I never gave up and said we can't get along in this world without somebody contradicting or arguing. I never said that. I find it an interesting challenge, and I analyze it when it's all over as to what someone said, and try to get through a whole session of conversation without someone throwing me under the bus or being rude to me or anything like that. And I was talking to some women about this in a little circle of friends that I've got, and one of them brought up the subject that, they may know how to dress femininely and beautifully at home, but the manners and the voice has to match. And that's what I'm going to talk about today as I go through some of these other things about our demeanor and the way we speak. I had a whole section on conversations at home, but I want to include it in clothing at home because you can dress very femininely and still have crude manners and crude speech, and so your manners have to go with. And so now I want to read a poem by Edgar A. Guest called My Life. I have a life I can't escape, a life that's mine to mold and shape. Some things I lack of strength and skill. I blunder much and fumble. Still, I can in my own way design what is to be this life of mine. It is not mine to say how much of gold and silver I shall clutch, what heights of glory I shall climb, what splendid deeds achieve in time. Lacking the genius of the great, the lesser tasks may be my fate. But I can say what I shall be, what in my life the world shall see, can mold my thoughts and actions here to what is fine or what is drear. Though my small skill I can elect to keep or lose my self-respect. No man can kindlier be than I, no man can more detest a lie. It can be just as clean and true as any gifted genius who rises to earthly heights of fame and wins at last the world's acclaim. I can be friendly, blithe of heart, can build or tear my life apart, can happy-natured smile along and shrug my shoulders at the wrong. I only choose what is to be, this life which symbolizes me. And that reminds me of the way that we dress can set the tone of your mood and the way that you act and speak and the way you conduct your life. And that's why I'm talking about clothing at home. We may not dress in designer styles. We can design our own, and we can wear what we want because, excuse me, there's a lot of chaff in the air from harvest going on, and I've been coughing so much, and that's why I haven't been here. I'm going to try to get through this without coughing. And the other thing is, he says, I shall choose what in my life the world shall see, can mold my thoughts and actions here to what is fine and what is drear. So with your clothing, you can choose what is fine and what is drear. But first of all, it has to suit your mood and make you feel new. Again, clothing used to make us feel like that. So I brought to the table a few rolls of fabric, and I wanted to show you what my daughter and granddaughter had done with my fabric because it fits so much better in the shelf. And then I could remove, what they did is instead of laying it flat in yardage, they rolled it for me. And then I can reach under and pull one out without messing up the whole shelf, without everything hanging out there. So I wanted to show you some of this. And I'm going to start with this one. And they're all 100% cotton, some of them Waverly fabric. Now Waverly fabric at the Walmart, they're selling in on these little cards 1 yard at a time, so I just get 4 of them. And I've figured out how I can lay out a dress on them without having to sew them all together. And this one, and why it connects with me, is your fabric, your clothing, your choice of colors and design has to connect with your feeling about life. With me, it's a comparison to an experience or nature or the mood of the season. Now this I would wear maybe on a rainy day. And I would put a little apron that kind of coordinated with it to go with. And probably if I had to go out, I'd put a little cardigan, maybe a blue cardigan to go with. And always, if I wear a jacket or a cardigan, I pick up the smaller color. I would not wear the yellow background color on this. It wouldn't be as nice for me. And also, I might choose a little pair of cloth shoes. I don't know if you've seen the cloth. I didn't bring any to the to the table here. But these little dresses suit me fine. I make them slender, like I don't have the skirt all puffed out all over the place, but they're slender, more to my body without clinging. And so it gives the illusion of tall and thin. One of the reasons I stay away from it, I keep wishing I could be just a little bit more fit when I come. But this evokes, when you go to look at fabrics, those of you who sew know, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, this reminds me of, you know, somewhere I went at such and such a time, reminds me of a place, or it makes me feel like such and such. And of course, yellow is always so uplifting, and even if it doesn't look good on you, you can choose different hues and shades of it so that it looks good on you. And so then the next one I brought to the table was this one here. This is another one of those 1-yard pieces from the Walmart, and I will make a dress out of it, and hopefully. But it has also got these vines of flowers on them, and oh, it just feels like the wildlife, and I just love it. It's just so pretty, and I would have rather had the flowers with a blue background, because to me that makes more sense. You know, you see the blue sky and then these pretty flowers against it. Sometimes I take pictures of that for you out in my yard, but still, this is a very flattering color for me, and I like the small print. And there are professional people. I watch the web sometimes to see what videos are put out for women, you know, over 30, over 40, over 50, over 60. Awful clothes. I'd just go back to my Laura Ashley, Jessica McClintock, and the cottage core that you see so much on Pinterest. And I'll make more remarks about that later. But I wanted to show you another one that I just love, because every year in the spring, we have these violas taking over all the ground. And I kept this fabric because I wanted to make a dress like Livy in The Magic of Ordinary Days. That is one of the first thing that I saw when she got off the train in that movie was this dress, and then she had a matching solid color coat with little fake viola on it like this, and then she had a hat to match with more flowers in it. And just write down something here, because we're going to connect the way we talk and our manners with our clothing. These beautiful violas, when you go outside and you see them, you smell them, and you appreciate them, they're not offensive, are they? And they're not in contradiction to the scenery around them, unless, of course, you are in a very rough area. They're a beautiful contrast. They bring out the softness and the goodness. So what we want to do is mold our personalities to this beauty. And I'll share with you some things that I have observed. Now I have another one that I ordered from Hancock's of Paducah. And it's an online fabric store, and they sell cottons, and they sell something called batik or batik. And I absolutely love this. I'll just go ahead and make a one-piece dress out of it. And the beauty of these dresses is I can wear them anywhere. I can wear them at home, and if I wear an apron over them, they'll be preserved. Take the apron off, run out to the grocery store or the post office or somewhere where someone might see me, and then come home, put the apron back on. If it's in the winter, I'll put a jacket over it and go out. Now, the last one I want to show you today, and this is in context with what I was saying about how I like to dress to go with the nature. I love the blue sky, and I like the look of flowers against that blue sky. That is so natural. That is what I see a lot around here. So I will make something very nice out of this, probably long sleeve. But like I say, I make the skirts rather straight. I can still move in them, but you don't want anything fluffy and wide and too ruffly, because it'll catch on things everywhere you go, from your car to your shopping cart in the store to your home while you're trying to clean. And I wanted to just show you a couple of these things that inspire me. And when I go to get fabric, it has to kind of pique my interest. I have to like it enough. This will remind me, I don't know why, but it has a 1950s feeling, and those were days in which I was carefree, you know, because you don't know anything about what's going on. But I just love this, and it reminds me. I'll tell you what it reminds me: the oilcloth that they used to put on the tables for tablecloth. We had a lot of that. You don't see it so much anymore, but it was pretty like this. So oilcloth was put over the tables, and in my day, we lived on the homestead, so our table was rough-hewn pieces of wood, probably not even sanded, and the oilcloth made it smooth for you to work with. So I'm really happy that my daughter and granddaughter came and rolled all these up and showed me how to get them out and put them back in, because when you pull them out, it leaves a little hole there, and you can stick it back in. And also, it doesn't wrinkle as bad when it's rolled like this for some reason. So I wanted to tell you about that. They've done some wonderful things here. They came one day, and I had this floor-to-ceiling bookshelf that had been sitting there since the days of homeschooling, and it was just such an eyesore because stuff was all over the place, some of it even on the floor, and I was always going to clean it up, but you know how we are. We want to have a whole day uninterrupted to do it. So I sat there, I think maybe 10 years, and I put a curtain over it one time when I was having company because it was such bad shape. Those two women came and in 2 hours had it done. One of them stood on a chair and cleaned out a bare spot of the shelf, handed the other ones some books. Then they had cloth that they cleaned the books with, and I think they put maybe just a drop of, I don't know what it was, a spray of essential oil or something on the cloth, and they wiped everything down. And then the one that was on the chair would say, okay, we're doing fiction. And she'd make a little, the one that wasn't on the chair would make a little sign that said fiction, put tape on it, and hand it up. And so then she started handing her all the fiction books. I think in 3 hours they had that done, something that I had been wrestling with for 10 years. And so now when they come, I find something that needs to be looked at or sorted or something like that, like a desk that needs to be cleaned or a closet that needs to be cleaned. They just get right into it. Of course, I do compensate them a little bit. I do give them some motivation. I don't want to use them as free coolie labor, so I do help them out. Now, we might go to a Ross or a Home Goods or Marshalls or something. If they see something they like and it's under $20, I might get it for them. Well, today I'm drinking hibiscus tea from Republic of Tea. When I get a tin of Republic of Tea, I just feel so elegant. It is such a beautiful tea. I'd like to try some of their teas in which they promote, you know, Pride and Prejudice and that sort of thing, because they have plum pudding and everything. But anyway, this is what the sachet looks like. It's just absolutely wonderful. And this is what it looks like. It's pretty, isn't it? It's pretty in pink. So I really just love it. Whoever sent it to me, I'm sorry, I'll have to dig up the envelope, and I usually write on the envelope or the address, return address, what it was that was sent, but I just haven't had time to get to it. And I will answer it. So I want to talk a little bit about the way we dress at home and how it can lift us and inspire us to develop our talents, to make us more interested in things that are common that we do every day, to make them more interesting each time. I even thought of the silliness of, you know, I have to take the trash out once a week, and then I have to wheel this barrel up to the curb. So I put on my trash apron. That's like, you know, you just change your wardrobe to do some of these things. But of course, I won't wear that same apron to cook with. That'll be washed and used the next week. Well, it's the same with clothing. You can have your sit-at-home dress and your afternoon tea dress and your dinner dress. You can do whatever you want at home. You can have your cleaning dress. You can have your make a special day dress. You can have all this. You don't have to sew either. You can find a lot of these things really if you look very carefully. And I was always inspired by the lady that left a comment for me when we were discussing how to get your girls interested in wearing modest and beautiful clothing in good taste with good lines. And she said she took her daughters to clothing stores regularly, and they looked at them, and she would say things like, this one's fine, but it's too short. This one's fine, but it's too low. This one's fine, but, you know, and then they would try to find the dress that had the most complementary attributes to it, and that her girls never wanted to wear the slop chick of the world because she had exposed them to dresses. The thing that I like about dresses, now I love the skirts and blouses too, is that they're one piece, and that I'm not busy throwing pieces around trying to match them up. And I finally worked out a system where this skirt is worn with this blouse usually. And I'll try to get this on the dress form and show this to you. I don't know if your teacher is really worthy of you seeing this. It's a little plaid skirt, and I will tell you something. Lace always goes well with plaid. And this is one of those peasant skirts with a big ruffle around it. But it works well for the home because it's really slim. So clothes, I'm going to use two books here, Simple Social Graces, where Linda Lichter talked about clothing in the Victorian era. And, you know, the Victorian era has been so trashed that even men today think that a woman that dresses in the Victorian manner with pretty clothes or just a little longer or lace and stuff, that she's somehow a legalist or a someone who's too formal, or she's proud. But I think that we should ignore that, because what that does, if someone shuns you because you look good or you're well dressed, is it eliminates the people you probably would waste a lot of time talking to. And then the other one was The Lost Art of Dress. If you haven't got this, and it's by, I can't pronounce the last name, I'm sorry, The Lost Art of Dress. And in this, many stories of women who changed their whole personality by the way they dressed. It changed them, how it changed them, testimonies of women, stories of people who overlooked, maybe a woman didn't think much of her, one day she transformed herself by sewing a beautiful dress and they didn't even recognize her. Which, you know, in a sense doesn't matter, except that it gave her more energy, more self-acceptance, and more purpose. And for me, now I'm talking about for the sewist, you don't have to sew. But for me, sewing gives me a purpose. I forgot to bring a little notebook I had where I was drawing dresses for different occasions. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice if we had a day dress wardrobe? And then a going out wardrobe, a ladies' Bible class wardrobe, a church wardrobe, a company wardrobe, or all the different things that we do, or even a going for a walk wardrobe. It would just be a matter of only a couple of pieces which would, you could interact with each other, and that would be up to you. Now today, I got a corner of my house clean enough to put the camera on so that I could talk to you. It's just been a mess. We've had lots of company, and we had a family reunion, and this what looks like a couch back here is 4 fold-away foam beds, soft beds, and so when they get them out, they're just all over the place, and then I have to put them. If they put them back together, sometimes they're not quite put back together right. I finally got that figured out. And so clothing, unfortunately, has become a very militant subject. And so I found for myself, I came here all enthusiastic because I'd found out more about feminine dress and just loved the principles behind it, and just the basic concept of it was that it was different from men's dress. But now, of course, you couldn't tell the two apart with some of the modern things that people wear. But you can with a dress, and with the little colors and patterns, be a stronger female identity. So unfortunately, it's become a very militant subject, because even when a preacher wants to mention how we need to present ourselves to the world in a very dignified way, and a way that represents our beliefs, somebody will come up and say, it doesn't matter what you wear. Well, if it doesn't matter what we wear, and that is basically the way the culture is going, it doesn't matter what you wear, but they are selling you something. They are selling you it doesn't matter what you wear clothes that are just, I don't know, they're blankets with a hole cut in the top or something, and a pair of shorts, I guess. But I mentioned to you last time I was talking to you that your ministry and your message and your life's purpose and everything, it's an expression. Yes, and I know clothing is an expression. Even to Victorians, it was an expression. It expressed their object of being orderly and being and having manners. And this lady, Linda Lichter, that wrote Simple Social Graces, she said, she wrote a chapter on the tongue, on casual talking and casual language and things like that. And she said that they knew, that society knew, that if they let the manners go downhill, that the clothing would be next. Yes, isn't that the truth? And that's why I'm today talking about how your clothing, we can make nice clothes, we can wear nice clothes at home, but we have to be nice people. And our conduct has to be nice too. And so I might mention a couple of situations where people aren't nice and they think they are being nice, and but having nice clothing on is somehow it causes you to be a little bit more formal, a little bit more inhibited in what you say when you're dressed nice. Probably not as partyish in your comments. So I might mention a couple of things that I saw back in the day that seems to be more prevalent today. And so the militant subject is that people can actually go after you and go after your reputation and everything if you say anything. So what do? We just do it ourselves. Anything we want to happen in this society, it's up to us. We make it happen. We dress better. We want the girls to stop wearing shorts and sloppy t-shirts and clunky shoes. We stop wearing it. We start wearing the best. That's the only way to spread it around, because what they'll do, they'll see you at the grocery store, and I always think, your house is your runway. Your grocery store is your chance to walk in a pretty dress, but it's an influence, and somebody will say something to you, and maybe someone else will say something really rude, but it's an influence, and somebody might think about that. It will stick in their mind, and they'll think, I saw that woman wearing that dress, and they'll see something like it and think, well, I'm going to try it. So the influence is really, really big. Look at the power of the influencers on the internet. Things that were started maybe by one person, somebody else liked it and went on to something else and became very well known and used and very useful. So you should pray about your appearance every day, that it would be pleasing and that it would also inspire you to do better at home, to do well at home, and to be content. And if things don't go well at home that day, at least you were dressed for it. If someone insults you, at least you were dressed for it. At least you didn't look as bad as they spoke of you. I'm always glad when I've gotten up and gotten dressed and there's been something unpleasant go on. I say to myself, well, I was dressed for it. And the other thing is that you're being a good steward of your body. when you dress well. And I talked to you about how the ministry comes from the eyes and the mouth and the face. And so you don't need to distract people with bare thighs and bare shoulders and a bare chest. You don't need to do that, because like I'm talking to you, any bare part is very, it's like light, you know, people just, you're distracted by it. So it also makes you a good steward of your body and of your life, and sensible. And sometimes it seems like we've lost the war on the culture of dress. I don't care. I think there's probably more of us than we realize, and the internet has helped a lot. We meet people that feel the same way we do, and even though there might be 1/10 of us going to the public spaces, church, grocery store, and everything, we still have an influence, and that's a lot. Now, it's more than just covering yourself if you're wearing a dress. You can't wear clothes that are so tight and they outline everything and you can see through them. Even if they're solid color, you can see every bit of your anatomy. I said in the previous video that when you're dressing for the home, even you say, oh, while I'm at home, you know, I'll just wear these old this or that or everything. It's not a good influence. It's not a good influence on those that come to the door. It's not a good influence on your children. I've often said, you know, you've got a child that's, you know, just a little tall, and all he can see is from your knees down or something. You need to be wearing something pretty that he can look at, and he can identify his mother from a bit of a distance because she's wearing a pretty dress. I know that when I'm out, and Mr. S wants me to do all the driving now, so when I'm out with him, I often go to a different part of wherever we are, a different part of the store or something. I like to wear something that's different than everybody else, something that maybe is colorful or more feminine, because then from a distance he can find me without using the phone. So wear one piece if you can, wear one piece. And I've often said, if you have to have a skirt and a blouse, make it the same pattern and same color. They used to have those back in the, I believe it was the 60s. The skirt and the blouse with the tiny print, all the same color. And the other thing that's really important is not to separate modesty from beauty. In the 80s, there were some people that thought, well, modesty is important, and they go around in just ratty old clothes and dull skirts and things and horrible-looking shoes and nothing pretty. But, you know, they could say, we wear skirts, we're modest. I don't think we need to separate beauty from modesty, because in my opinion, if it's not pretty, it's not modest at all. You're just showing off your ignorance of style and clothing, and you can be modest and pretty too. And your style standards need to reflect your own goals and values in life, and all your life long. And you can find many paintings. So I brought a book along here that I wanted to show you an example of. Sometimes you could get, this is called a Victorian Posy, but back in the 80s, these books were real popular, and sometimes they were scented, but they always showed a picture of a lady, a painting, a real painting, and then there was a poem about her, about maybe not that lady, but a poem that went with it. So the poetry and the descriptions of flowers or beauty were not discordant with the painting of the lady. And you see, not everything is perfect about this lady, but the artist brought out some of the things that people admire. And here's another one that I really like, Flowered in a Crannied Wall, and there's a painting. I'll try to find these on the web and put them on for you. But look how this lady goes with even that old brick wall there. She's a contrast with that. and go with whatever is growing out there. Let me see if I can find some more here. Here's a famous one here. Uh, and I don't know what the name of it is. I'll try to find it. But there have been a lot of imitations of modern artists of the girl sitting in the window seat. Do they have window seats anymore? I remember years ago we used to go on house tours of these modern homes in a neighborhood that were for sale, and they often had that feature, the window seat. I always thought it was so charming. So these paintings that I showed you were not in contradiction, but they complemented the surroundings. And those that were in contrast weren't offensive in any way. And so I wanted to put more paintings by this Hans Dahl that put, he was a Scandinavian painter, or maybe he was Danish, and he painted these beautiful women with rakes and hoes that were out in the mountain areas, the mountains and the fjords and the rivers, and they were gathering up hay and grain for their animals. But the women were so pretty, and their cheeks were blossoming with the sun on them, had shiny faces, and so to look natural and to look healthy and to look happy is important. Now let's talk about your trash. I wanted to bring this subject up because if you're going to try to look better at home, then you need to speak better at home too. Everything has to change, but you can't do it in a hurry. You have to do things little by little, maybe to get your family used to the changes, little by little. So you don't suddenly, get up and start wearing something that's so out of character with you. So you want to just change things very subtly and very small. And so I wanted to talk about your trash because one thing that we need to learn, and this is coming into even church circles and stuff, whereas you used to only hear it at work or, where women were at work with the way they talked, always telling all the dirt on their family. And we thought years ago you weren't supposed to, quote, air your dirty laundry. You're all dressed up, you're trying to be more feminine, and you start talking. You start talking about your one of your relatives and what a messed up life they have, and it goes on, and it sullies the atmosphere. And somehow some people associate these bad experiences and these things that people talk about with what they were wearing that day. They don't want to wear it again because that's where they heard the sordid story of somebody's cousin. So the important thing is to treat life's moments as events, and if you do that, you'll want to be dressed for it. You want to have nice clothes, and you can put away. I've experienced this firsthand. You put away clothes and say those are too nice. I'll wear those out for something special, which I've gotten where I don't want to go anywhere special. So there they are, hanging there. So they're doing no one any good hanging there. So you can do something with them. You're allowed to wear them if you want to. You can wear them to dinner at home. And there was what I thought was a lost cause. I thought of tattoos being a lost cause, of something that I probably shouldn't even bother to try to correct, because after all, after they get them on, they can't be removed. But there are two things that we can do about it. We can warn people, compliment them on their lack of tattoos. Say, I don't see any tattoos on you. Congratulations. The creation is God's creation, your skin. And I don't like the idea of messing with things that God made, God created like that. And we can warn the young, don't ever do that. And I forget who it was that told me that one of her children wanted a tattoo, so she had what you call leverage over him, and she said, if you get that tattoo, you're not getting this. He had a little inheritance coming to him at a certain age, but if you get that tattoo, I'm going to hang on to it a lot longer. So he thanked her later that he did not get it. He didn't get it, and his children didn't get them. But once they're on, that's a lost cause. There's no point lecturing them for that. But what you're going to see is something that I'm going to post on, I hope, on this video, and that is the cottage core and the longer clothing for women. They're wearing these little necklines, they're wearing the puff sleeves, and a lot of the royal family, royal people, are wearing cottage core clothing. I'll show you pictures of it. And they will be covering more. Things are going to turn more Victorian because they're going to have all these things to cover their tattoos when they get tired of showing them. And so that's good. They will be finding more stuff to cover with. We also are to behave royally. You know, the Bible calls the followers of Christ a royal priesthood, so we're to behave like royalty. And royalty is really careful about some of the things that they do. And although I can probably get someone to argue with me about that, they are under obligation to present themselves to the world in a positive way. They can afford to do that, and they can do that. I wish some of our celebrities would do that, but they don't feel a responsibility to mankind to behave in a way that is a good influence. And I think too that people have clothing dyslexia today. Everybody's got a kind of dyslexia. Well, I have discovered a new one. It's clothing dyslexia. They don't know whether they have clothes on or not. They might even go to church wearing something that they wore to bed. They might just decide, oh, today is too hot, I'm just going to cut off my jeans, wear my cutoffs to church. They have clothing dyslexia. They don't know when it is appropriate to wear something to wear, you know. The other thing is with this clothing dyslexia is they don't know the front of the shirt from the back of the shirt, and they don't know, women, especially young women that grew up in you know, spandex and everything, they're not comfortable with anything else. They don't know how to wear things. But I would say Pinterest is your best influence for feminine clothing. I'd say it would be called cottage core, would be what the word is now. Or the other word was peasant. And I always said you can't go wrong with that because some of that type of clothing looked good for ages, historical ages, on women of all nationalities in their own colors and styles and fabric. So we have to, some causes are lost causes. You may have been in a place 30 years, not one change in the way that women dress. But the thing is, the message is always live and let live, and you dress respectfully. It will have an effect someday on someone, even if they never change. They will always think of you as someone who wouldn't stoop to lowness of the way other people dress. So I wanted to talk about the trash. When we talk about when ladies get together, unfortunately, and I heard a lady say this, that unfortunately a lot of times Christian women get together and they get to talking about things they shouldn't talk about. They talk about personal anatomy. They talk about personal family problems that are crude. They talk about things that are of the world and not edifying, and rather sullying, debilitating. And I often wonder, you know, we've got these trash bags. They are, you put your trash in it, and you pull the drawstring or the tag on it, and you put it in your big bin out there. But what if you just didn't bother with that and you dumped it all on your front lawn every time you had trash? That was what it means about not airing your dirty laundry. You don't leave it out there. You bag it up and you cover it up and you neaten it up. It doesn't mean that you're being dishonest. It just means you're being discreet. We're not required to tell the truth about every dirty deed everybody has done. And air your dirty laundry. This was an expression when before dryers, um, electric dryers. You hang your clothes on the line, but sometimes people would air their clothes out, so because it wasn't wash day or they couldn't wash them for some reason, so they would air them out. They put clothes pegs on and they'd air their dirty laundry. But they learned that you would put the line somewhere where people passing by could not see it, because you didn't want to air your dirty laundry. And so it's the same thing with telling about your family and what a terrible mess everybody is. That's airing your dirty laundry. Now, some people will argue with that. They'll say, well, I just did it for prayers. That's always the excuse. If someone needs prayer, give their name and say, please pray for her. That's all you have to do. You don't have to air her dirty laundry or his dirty laundry. Because if you start doing it, they might have a good friend. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about airing it in groups of people, or to other people, or on your lists or whatever it is you send out, and on your social media. It's not very good. It's not edifying. It doesn't lift up. There was a time in America, in the U.S., where to broadcast a failure in someone's life. Of course, today they don't even call it a failure. They say, well, it's just the way life is, And yes, it is. Life is part good, part bad. It has ups and downs. It's normal. But there used to be a time when if you aired your dirty laundry, you were spitting on your country. You were spitting on your God and on your church and on your family. And it was a poor reflection on everyone. And fathers and mothers would tell their sons and daughters, don't talk about us at school. Don't talk about us, what was it called? Out of school or something like that. It was an expression. If you can remember it, you can always leave me a comment. And I wanted to read out of, let me see, The Lost Art of Dress here. And it was about the manufacturers and the fashion revolution of the 1960s. And it says that women, the mistake that women made was trying to dress for men instead of dressing for the occasion. And so in this story here that was told in one of the chapters was that in a way women guide men to like whatever they're wearing, because it's not worth the fight to contradict it or to object to it, so the men will kind of go along with everything. And women have the power to train men in good taste, but not just by dressing well and covering, but by good speech and manners. The things you talk about have to be high class and uplifting, and not foolishness and I wanted to read to you if I could find my definition here, the definition of silliness. Women also have to be careful. You can dress really, really nice, but if you have that high-pitched, shallow laugh after everything someone says, or after everything you say, it lowers your value in a way in some people's eyes, and you might not think it matters, in the circles you are. But I would really suggest that you go online and look for ways to be high value, ways to be refined, and you'll find out, you'll collect a lot of information that's really good, that's easy to adopt, it's free, you don't have to buy new clothes or anything, it's the way that you talk. And I was always amused in Pride and Prejudice that Darcy's sister, she seemed like such a snob, but she said what was really right, what we used to learn in the, what were those schools called, that were finishing schools, how to be finished and polished and everything. And she said it's a way of talking, and it's a way of walking, and it's in her demeanor, and it's saying the right thing, and not just saying any old thing, and it's her pastimes and what she reads and things like that. Well, that is all true. And one of the differences between you and women who are lacking in understanding about dressing well and behaving well and not silly is that you have a foundation. You know what a foundation is of a house? You know that if the house is knocked down, the foundation is usually still there. But other people, they just live on the upper parts of the shallowness, the shallow air. And when the culture removes all their interests and all their things that help them create their personality and the things they talk about and the things they wear, they'll just go to the next fad that comes along because they don't have a foundation. But you should have a foundation where you have values that steer you along every era, every fad. You know, fad means for a day. Every cultural change, you just go along. You don't need the world. You have to be like Mrs. Eliot. For me, the world has nothing, because everything I need is in here. It's, for example, if the culture shuts down and they no longer make it interesting for ladies to have their interests, you can create your own song. You can create your own exercise class. You can create your own clothing. You can write your own story. Can't buy books anymore? Write your own story. You can create a play. You can create anything that the world offers you. You can learn to cook, and you can do most things at home. And I have talked a lot to you about homesteading, and all that was, what it meant was that there was a house on a piece of land that partially supported the owner. There'd have to be several buildings built, and they could grow crops or have animals, and they could have other jobs, but it partially supported the home. And I think that everybody can have a homestead. Just start with your home and have things in it that can support you in good books to read. And if you haven't got them, just keep writing that story. And everybody that aggravates you, they're just a character in your novel, another character in your novel. Let me see if there's anything else I need to write. So, the most important thing is how to dress at home. Dress beautifully, dress femininely, and have a clothes diary. And the clothes diary is fun because you can say, today I wore this, you know, and I did this, and that way you know that you just wore that, and the next week comes up and you can remember to maybe not to wear the same thing if that bothers you. And a clothes diary is a lot of fun for young and for old, and also a diary of things you did. They're really, really fulfilling. And for instance, I have a little set of clothes marked off in my closet for my videos, and I'll experiment before I click on to see if I like what it looks like with the background and everything like that. But that's the way we should be with everything. Our clothes should not be in contradiction to the beauty around us and to our values. So, ladies, I hope you have a wonderful day today, and that this has been of some value to you. And I'll try to post some of the pictures and things online that I spoke of, so that you can see what I'm talking about. And so in the meantime, stay close to Christ, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.